with the county commissioners and the county council. Too much to say there, right? We'll go ahead and start the meeting with the prayer led by Mr. Barsley, and I'll lead in the Pledge of Allegiance. If you would stand.
Join me in an attitude of prayer. Gracious God, our Heavenly Father, as we members of this community come together, we're grateful for your love and your mercy that endures forever. We pray tonight that you will grant us wisdom to hear and direction that we need for future days. Help us in the things that we deliberate, and may they honor you and may they bless our community. We pray this in your precious name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll go ahead and call the roll for the council.
Scott,
Here.
Connor,
I spoke with Mr. Connor via email, and he would not be here this evening.
Hicks,
Here.
Perez,
Present.
Bowling,
Here.
Lemming,
Lemming will be a few minutes late
Middlesworth.
here. Now we'll let the commissioners call their roll.
We already been called into session by Council President Middlesworth. We note all three members are present, so we will call the Grant County Board of Commissioners to order in joint session with the county council.
Thank you, Commissioner Barsley. At this time, we'll go ahead and have the opening comments from the commissioners.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I think each of us will make a short comment and see the council wants to do that before we ask the sheriff to come and share with us. But we want to thank the council for coming together, for helping us as we are deliberating the needs and concerns not only of the jail, but the entire Grant County complex of facilities. We appreciate our Envoy team members who have assisted us as a fiduciary, that have come beside us and helped us as we start plotting this. We will thank the other members that are here later, but we look forward to hearing again about what facts we found out and how we can move forward in a way that not only protects the inmate population, but is sensitive to the needs of the entire county. Turn to my colleagues for any other comments.
I'll speak up. Again, appreciate the joint session where we can all discuss this and realize that there is a situation in front of us that we have to decide as a community what we're going to do. The cost is very, very high. Probably one of the biggest things that we'll ever do in our lifetime when it comes within the county. But in the same token, we've got a serious problem in front of us that that can explode at any time as far as legality wise, ADA wise, and things like that. So I think starting these kind of discussions amongst the people who have to make the decision on what we're going to do. Believe me, I'd rather spend it on roads and streets and infrastructure and everything that we've got, but we've got a serious problem in front of us that I think we need to address. That's my comments.
This is my first joint session, so this is going to be interesting for me and hoping to learn a lot. But I just echo Commissioner Barsley and Commissioner Wright's comments. Glad to be here, but as Mr. Wright stated, we do have a serious issue. The people that I have talked to, the solution seems clear to me. But being the new guy on the block, maybe there's more that I need to learn and more that I need to hear. And I'm looking forward to doing that tonight. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Any other comments from the commissioners?
Not at this time, sir.
Okay, thank you. At this time, I'll go ahead and have the opening remarks from the council. Is there any members of the council would like to Have any comments?
Yeah, I'd like to say that we know we got a problem. But we also offered that D-home for the adults 4 or 5 months ago to relieve some of the pressure. Nobody's came, you guys haven't come to us, nobody. I mean, you keep talking about new jail, new jail, new jail, right? I work in that jail, okay? It ain't as bad as what you're saying. And as far as ADA, if you're grandfathered in, when they did this 6 years ago, you're still grandfathered in. Okay, so we can maintain the jail. Just like when you guys did this, it was supposed to be 15 to 20 years. Now all of a sudden, 5, 6 years later, you got to build a new jail. And you're gonna ask the taxpayers that's suffering right along with everybody else in America, you're gonna put this burden on them. I don't believe so. I wouldn't be in favor of this at all.
Any other questions or comments from the members?
I mean, I think we have a lot in front of us to try to come up with a solution. I don't know that building a new jail is the absolute solution at this point in time. I think we have facility space in front of us that we can take a look at. Maybe it's going to take some out of the box thinking. Maybe we need to look at a pretrial facility. We know that over 90% of our issue is pretrial defendants. That's not necessarily $110 million or whatever project that this is to solve trial or an issue of free trial. I remain open-minded about the project. But there are certainly some things in front of me that just honestly doesn't make sense at this point in time. Overall, if it is $110 million project, we know by the time that's spent, you're looking at another 15 to 20%. Year over year over year, we're asking every man, woman, and child in Grant County to pay $2,000 or over $2,000 out of their pocket to fund a brand new jail. That is a big ask. That is a huge ask, especially when we have county employees needing pay raises. We have plenty of people in this county that needs to be taken care of in a variety of different ways. And to ask that burden, I'm not comfortable at this point placing that burden, especially on those. That's just every man, woman, and child. I'm not comfortable with placing a $2,000 burden on somebody that can't even work, can't even afford it. But we have the information in front of us. Those are just my thoughts as I see right now. I mean, we will hear the report and what comes out, but just right now, initially, that's where I'm at. I don't know that we are going to be expected to make decisions tonight upon this. Hopefully not. Hopefully this is just the first of many discussions. Hopefully we can hear this presentation. Maybe we can form a committee. Maybe we can bring other stakeholders to the table to try to find solutions that we have in front of us.
Any other comments from the council members? I would say that my comments are that throughout this process, I've kept an open mind. I've worked in the jail back under Heimlich's administration for a while. It's an interesting concept, a new jail. 110 million, I think, will turn out to be over budget. And what this does not address is the immediate fix. So I think tonight I'd like to hear what's the immediate fix moving forward for the situations going on in the jail. And I think that's the issue I'd like to hear tonight, more so than the new jail portion. But how do you alleviate pressure in the next 3 years? I mean, that's the real question. So with that, is there any other comments or questions from the members? We'll go ahead and allow the sheriff for his opening remarks.
Get a little packet that he wants to pass out.
Okay. Thanks.
And that I have just some various information for you, so you can look at later on, maybe after the meeting. So good evening, Commissioners, council members. Thank you for allowing me the time to speak tonight. You know, as a police officer for 29 years, I learned that teamwork is vital to accomplishing a mission. Whether the mission was a drug deal operation involving a dangerous drug dealer, a raid on a house of a dangerous felon, or responding to calls where a horrific event had occurred, teamwork helped us succeed. And I believe that by working together as a Grant County government team, we can solve the issue we're facing tonight. As the Grant County Sheriff, I am the steward of the jail, and I am the provider of facts and information to the council, to the commissioners, and to the public. This, in my opinion, is the easiest role in the process. As the executive branch of our team and entity in charge of all government facilities, the commissioners must decide what to do with the facts and information I have provided. Is a new facility needed, or can we do with what we currently have? As a fiduciary branch of our team, the council has what I believe is the most challenging part of the process. If the commissioners decide that a new facility is needed, you must determine if we can or how we can fund the new facility. These are three distinct roles, yet one team. And I believe that if we as a Grant County team work together on this issue that is before us tonight, we can come up with a solution and accomplish the mission of keeping the citizens of Grant County safe. As a new sheriff, I don't want to look back at the past because I can't control what happened in the past. I can only control what I do today and in the future. So to be part of the solution, I take ownership of the problem, as we all should. If each player in the process takes ownership of the situation that we are in, I believe that we will be successful in providing the citizens of Grant County a better and safer place to live. The issue we face is not one individual's doing or a group's doing. It is merely a problem of time and culture. Time and the fact that we have one of the oldest jails in the state, and with age, unfortunately, comes issues such as a constant breakdown of the elevators. As you all know, we're a 6-story building that we have inmates on 5 different floors. So when emergency arises on the floor, whether it's a medical emergency for an inmate, or whether it's an issue where one of our detention staff may have gotten into with an inmate, we need to get help up there, that could hinder our progress in getting up to those floors in a timely manner. Other issues such as plumbing problems. There are times throughout the year where we've had sewage leaking down from the top floors into the offices in the jail. We've had electrical problems and lighting problems that were constantly criticized from the state or flunking our state inspections. Mechanical problems such as automatic doors breaking or not working correctly. We have one cell block where the doors have to be shut manually, which requires our jail staff to go in there to manually shut them. We had an incident not too long ago where one of our detention deputies was actually jumped by a inmate. We have difficulties finding replacement parts for older equipment and materials used in jail construction. We're not ADA compliant. We do not have enough single cells for mental health crises that we face as a community. There's also inadequate space to fulfill the medical obligations we're required to provide to our inmate population. So not only is the issue of product of time, but it's also an issue of product of culture. Unfortunately, lawlessness abounds in our society. In a perfect world, a jail would not be needed. However, we know that this will never happen because we live in a fallen world. The issue that's been brought about due to the lawlessness in our society is an issue of overcrowding. The current issue with overcrowding began in 2016 and has worsened over the years. Our facility was built to house 274 inmates, where we average approximately 357 inmates in August. Jail overcrowding is also due to a lack of adjudication of cases promptly. Much of this is brought about by COVID-19, but the issue is still present today. So to solve the problem, we must take ownership of the problem and come up with the solutions that will be best for our citizens and the best way of keeping our county safe. And I believe that working together as a team, I believe that we can accomplish this, but we all need to sit down, talk over the issues, and find the best solution for the issues that we're currently facing at the Grant County Jail. Thank you.
You sure?
You have anything?
Ready to go, yeah.
The next will be the presentation by Eric on the jail study.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Eric Kratz. I'm a vice president at DLZ, and I've been working in correctional design since my first internship back in 1987. I live this every day. Worked on about 95 county jail studies throughout the Midwest and over 150 jail projects throughout the Midwest, headquartered down in Indianapolis. So one thing I do, just as a good segue to something that the sheriff was talking about, I've got just a few slides here. None of you seen this before. This is not printed, but this is absolutely 100% information from the Indiana Department of Correction. We've talked a little bit about it just in prior meetings, but the Indiana Department of Correction is required to do an annual inspection on all correctional facilities in the state of Indiana. And Chance Sweet is the one inspector, northern half of Indiana, that reviews your facility. One of the things that they do is they take a lot of data when they're at your facility, not just looking at, do you meet the jail standards and what kind of issues that you may have versus the jail standards, but they also take some general data. And this is something that for literally the last 20 years, DLZ, we look at this and we present it and we share it with folks in various different counties. So this is a public document. You can do your data request from the state of Indiana and you can receive this. But what I did was I broke down to look at some of the, I'm gonna have to step right over here to the side. If you don't mind, I'll speak up. But this gives a lot of different data. And I'm gonna talk to you just a little bit about this as we go through. The county population, and this is pretty quick, but the county population of Grant County, this is 2022 data. Grant County is the 26th largest county in the state of Indiana at about 65.6 thousand citizens in the county. And this is all going to make sense here in a minute. So 26th largest at 66,000 folks. The year built. I'm going to spend just a minute on this just to share some data from this perspective. Technically, you have the 16th oldest jail in the state of Indiana that has not had an extensive renovation and or addition to your facility. So let's look at the ones that are older. And I'm going to go through this very quickly and just kind of give you a status of where the 15 or so that are older than you. Union County has 10 rated beds. It was originally built in 1890, and they did an expansion in 1980 and actually reduced their number of beds. Number two, Orange County, built in 1982. They're going through a design project right now. 1983, Carroll County, they're going through a design. This is designed to build a brand new facility. Fourth largest, Madison, down in Anderson, 1984. They're finishing up their design process now. Sullivan County, built in 1984. They're about 80% done with construction. DeKalb County in 1985, built in 85. They're also doing the same. Fulton County actually opened their new facility. It was built in 1995. Monroe County, 1986. We start design on that next Wednesday. All right, and we designed some of these other ones, but I'm just pointing that out. 1987, Owen County. They have tried for years. They're back on the table of trying to get a jail started from a design perspective. 1987, Whitley County, they're in a design process. They may have started construction. I'm just not familiar with that. Fayette County, we're doing a female expansion now in a different building, but they expanded, but in a different facility. 1989, number 12, Gibson County, they've started construction. 1989, Jennings County, they have desperately tried, they've got the public safety tax. We started design, they stopped the design, but that's where they're at. Warwick County is in design if they've not started construction, and Du Bois County is, they just recently completed. So out of the jails that are older than Grant County, just making a statement, it's a fact, it doesn't mean it's right or wrong. You've got Union County and Fulton County and Owen County are the ones that have not built a new jail that are older than you. So quite honestly, in a couple of years, I'm not sure Union and Owen are going to do anything soon, but you're going to have one of the 2 or 3 oldest jails in the state of Indiana. Just make it a fact of what it is.
In your opening comment, you said extensive renovation. What does that mean to you?
Extensive renovation is they go in, they update the building to meet the current jail standards. They're going in and they're doing extensive renovation, gutting the HVAC, plumbing, electrical. They're replacing all the electronic door hardware, all the security electronics, going through completely painting the facility, things like that.
Which that sounds like stuff we've paid
You've
for
done
in the
part of it.
past.
You've done part of it, that's sure, but you've not done all of those things. Okay. Next thing, total rated beds, 274 rated beds. Indiana Department of Correction is actually the one that sets the number of rated beds for your facility. And it is 274, your 24th largest in the state of Indiana. 92 counties in Indiana, 91 counties have a jail. Ohio doesn't, just as a bit of trivia for you. Total, and this is what it is, but total males, you've got 200, on the date of the inspection of 2022, 274 beds, you had 273 men in the facility, which number of men made you the 15th largest in the state. As far as females, on the day of the inspection, you had 50, which is about a little less than 20%, which is about normal for females in overall correctional facilities. Your total inmates on the day of the inspection, you had the 16th largest, 323 in a 274 bed facility. As we've talked about in the past, not just DLZ, but the National Institute of Correction, which is really governs with the American Correctional Association, ACA, note that jail facilities should be occupied when they're at 80%. And that gives you rooms for fluctuation, for high numbers, low numbers. If you need to do some classification for your inmates, separate your prey and predator. Beds per 1,000. This is one of the first things I look at, and I can just look at a couple of numbers and tell if a jail facility is overpopulation. Beds per 1,000, you have 4.18 beds per 1,000, which makes you the 58th largest number for that in the state of Indiana. If you had a number that was very similar to what your county population was, which means you need more beds, you probably wouldn't be in this situation. You just need more beds for your size of your county. Inmates per 1,000, you're at 19th largest in Indiana of amount of inmates that are in the facility per every 1,000 inmates. You've got 4.92 inmates per 1,000 of your county that are in your facility. And you're the 7th most filled facility in the state of Indiana. I will tell you that Jefferson, Vigo, Wabash, Madison, those have all built a new facility. Howard County, we're basically in the same process as you are now. And then Vandenberg has started, stop on their expansion. But very quickly, you could have the one of the oldest jails and also one of the most overcapacity jails in the state of Indiana. Just wanted to share that information. It's not anything other than factual information that the Department of Correction for their annual report. So now we will flip over and we will talk about the primary reason for the meeting. I think most of you commissioners and council, you do have the book. This is the big thick book, about 135 pages. It's back from in April when we presented it at that point in time. And then we've done a little bit of some other things along the way as some of the specifics. Our focus tonight is to talk about the existing conditions of the building. We're not talking, we've talked about it twice in the past, but we're not talking about the rated projections and where you need to be in the year 2045, how many beds you might need. If a new facility is the right thing, we're specifically talking about your existing facility. And I think that just to kind of start off with this, the sheriff noted on a couple of things that I think are critically important, and I want to make sure that everyone understands it, is that most new facilities, and this is a super high percentage of facilities, regardless of how big they are, most new facilities today are designed to be one operational floor for a facility. Some really big jails will get into the second floor for an operation. And what I mean is that all of your inmates, all of your staff, all of your core services, such as your intake booking, your sally port, your kitchen, your laundry, your visitation, all of that stuff is on one floor. Because one of the biggest things in jail facilities is the movement of the inmates. It takes staff, and it makes a difference in what the efficiency is in your facility and the amount of staff that it takes to actually observe and to operate your facility. Having inmates on 5 different floors, there is a cost to do that. It's not a benefit. It's not something that just provides extra opportunities. It's literally, by the jail being what we call a mid-rise facility, it costs you money from an operational point of view to be able to staff that facility, because it is a staff inefficient facility in the way that it was designed. You can't change that. Okay, that's the reality of it, is that the cost of staffing your facility is something that doesn't go away. And if you look long term, is the staffing of the facility over a 20-year period is likely more expensive than even building the facility. All right, and that's something that your facility just does not have. Second thing, as we start going through this, we walked through with we had our structural engineers, mechanical, electrical, plumbing folks, myself, another architect. We walked through and we spent a lot of time looking at things, listening to people as they talked about the facility. So what we were trying to do is to capture the condition of your facility and what can be done or cannot be done to improve your facility to be a safe and secure environment for both the staff and the inmates as you move forward for the next 20 years. All right. And so what we've done is we've got a lot of slides here. We've got a lot of photographs here. I'm going to try and hit the highlights of it because I think it's important to understand the existing condition of your facility. You know, the sheriff pointed out, and wholeheartedly we agree, is that you've got components of your jail that you can no longer get parts for. And you've got to be able to replace those parts when they break. At the age of your facility, the new jail, 30 plus years old, is things are breaking or they have broken, and finding those parts is just not possible, which creates other safe and secure issues within your overall facility. So one thing to keep in mind is when your jail was designed, it was designed for very different inmates, the totality of the inmates, than what we have today. Your jail, like those older jails that I talked about earlier, were designed, quite frankly, for guys that just did crimes. And you're gonna say, well, everyone in jail did crimes, but it was for what I would say is the bad guys, what everybody thinks what jails are. But through the 1980s with President Reagan and his wife, we had the war on drugs, a big influence on jail population. In the 1990s, we looked at closing mental institutions across the country. The federal government started doing it. The early 2000s, we came through, thanks Purdue Pharma, all the OxyContin and all the opioid crisis that we had. So between 1985 and 2015, we more than tripled our population of incarcerated inmates across the country. Our citizenship did not triple, but our people that are in jail did. And it's decisions that the United States did, and Indiana actually incarcerates as top 5 in the country of people per 1,000 that are incarcerated across the entire United States. do the crime, do the time. And it's something that Indiana has accepted and has put into law. It makes a difference to your facility. Your facility was not designed for all those things. It was designed much more to house the first thing, the bad guys, and not the folks with the mental issues, the behavioral health, the behavioral management, as well as the medical items. So, shoot. Got the wrong one.
Be patient. We're experiencing some technical difficulties here.
Yeah, sorry about that. So what we did is we looked at both this facility as well as your juvenile facility, and I'm going to give you a snapshot on it. You can see when your facility was constructed, it is 30 plus years old as we go through that. So as we looked at the sheriff's office, some of the things that we did was we look at both the interior of the building as well as the exterior and the site and the conditions. And, this is not to point any fingers at any maintenance staff, any commissioners, any council, any of the sheriffs. This is just the condition of your facilities that you need to make some improvements to it. As we go around, there's just a lot of concrete, sidewalks, curbs, pavement that just need to be upgraded. And also some of it does need to be ADA compliant. These type of things are not just grandfathered in. We start to look at the exterior of the building, and we start to see a lot of the cracks that's in the concrete, that were in the veneer on the building. We start seeing water infiltration through those cracks. Things start to small off. It creates problems. The same thing with a lot of the sealants around the building that just simply need to be replaced. Just general maintenance, money's necessary for that, but just general maintenance that go in and to take care of those things. Things that can be fixed, but it just takes money and time to do those types of things. Started seeing a lot of, several of the windows, the glazing, you've lost the insulation, you've lost the seal on them. You see a lot of cracks, you saw a lot of frosting of the glass. You see some air movement actually in some places, and even some broken glass in some other areas along those lines. Insulated, the overhead sectional doors, just dirty. We need to make sure that we've got the sealants and the paint to make sure that this is a big investment in the county, and just taking care of those things to make sure that they operate and function right. You see some other things just going along saying the same things with some of the photographs. We get to the interior of the facility. 274 beds is what your facility was designed for, but you didn't have 274 inmates when you opened your facility. It was a lower number. But now that we've got to 350 plus, in a lot of situations, you got a very small vehicle sally port. And just think about the amount of arrests, the amount of people that are coming into your facility or maybe being transported to another agency for that. Your drive-through is difficult. It creates issues just from an efficiency point of view. Lack of storage. You have to use every possible location for that as you go throughout. I will say, and I've been in probably 75 jails at least in the state of Indiana, your intake booking area is very, very small. Okay, and if you look at the amount of people that are coming into it, you look at how you can do your holding cells, where you can hold them, where you can shower them, you can search them. It's a very inefficient space. It's hard to get people through that. It's hard to be able to observe people. Line of sight is what's key in jail facilities. You can do it with cameras, but that's not the best way, especially in the intake booking. Keep in mind, that's where it's the most stressful point for inmates is they've been, or an arrestee, they're going into the intake booking. I've been arrested. I'm going to jail. And just where they have a lot of issues from that point of view, it does make a difference, both for the inmate or both for the arrestees and the staff. Don't ever forget about the staff that has to work in the overall space. You have added the body scanner, but it was not a space designed for that original. Okay, you've had to adapt, which you've done a great job in doing that. But it's once you adapt for that, you lose something else, and you lose things that are critical. your personal property at the intake. It's been repurposed to do other things. And you just have a lot of spaces throughout that you have to move things around to be able to make things work. And you're just out of space from that perspective. Throughout your conditions, understand we talk about things being grandfathered, not just ADA, but jail standards. We talk, yes, you can be grandfathered in a lot of situations. But what I will tell you is that when you do go in and you start really doing a full building renovation, when you talk to Chance Sweet and his boss, who's Kevin Orm, the Director of Construction Services, he's going to say, how are you meeting the jail standards? Okay, we let you get by with what you're doing. Yeah, you replace some locks, you replace the boiler, but now you are making the spaces work. And when you make those spaces work, you reconfigure, they will require for you to be part of the current Indiana jail standards from that point of view. PREA, Prison Rape Elimination Act, is an important thing in jail design. It's just lines of sight, but it's also the rights of the folks that are actually in the facility. If y'all want to read about PREA, you can, but it's something that is, it is very different than what the rights are of the inmates compared to what your facility, all the different things that can be from that point of view. Quite often in the intake booking area, we have like a pretrial service and designs today. Is this the facility where the arrestees need to go to? A point of, before you go through that last door, let's talk to them. Let's see, do we bring him here? We take him Marion General? Do we take him down to Muncie? Where do we take someone? And that's a space that can make a difference in your overall population of your facility. Your medical exam, you've got some areas that are not compliant with the secure perimeter requirements of a jail. Okay, you've had to modify, adapt some spaces to be able to make it work. And it's an issue that just needs to be addressed. You can do it some different ways, but it's something that needs to be addressed. Your finishes throughout the building, nobody likes spending monies on jails. We all know that. But you need to replace a lot of your finishes in your jail, as much for the staff again as it is for the inmates. It's just worn out, and it needs to be updated from that perspective. We go into the laundry. Your laundry wasn't originally designed. You've got multiple things for that, but it was not designed for 350 plus inmates. The same way with your kitchen that we'll talk about here in a minute. So those core services need to be a lot bigger. And then you start thinking about, here on this site, where would you expand to address vehicle sally port, intake booking, medical area, kitchen, laundry, and you start looking at those spaces that you need from that perspective. Because it does have to be an environment that you do want to be able to recruit staff, you want to be able to retain staff, and it's also got to be in compliance with what inmates the rights are. This is just where we talked about the kitchen is small. It's very small for your size of a facility. Talking about, like the kitchen area where you've got inmates and you got staff sharing the same restrooms, and that creates problems that you might imagine for a lot of different reasons. Yes, you're using inmate workers that are supposed to be different types of folks and stuff, but there's still inmates in your facility. And you really need to have some things that are at a different perspective. Guys, I could spend all night talking about every picture, every word on every slide. I'm trying to get through this just to kind of give you a general overall view. You do have staff locker rooms. Great. A lot of jails, unfortunately, don't have that, but you have it. And when you have it, you do need to maintain it and keep it refreshed and keep it up to date, especially with exhaust and just cleanliness of the space. It's just worn pretty significantly throughout the spaces. Talked about the simulator, fantastic. There are very few jails in Indiana actually have the simulators, and talking about what you do, it's a great program. So often it's, hey, we got to shoot. No, you don't. Sometimes you need not shoot, and just going through the simulation is fantastic for your law enforcement folks to be able to use that. Your visitation. In today's world, visitation in jail facilities is not just through the glass, which we call the non-contact. We also have the video visitation. We also have the contact visitation where folks can sit in one room. And I think that some of the issues that we start to see in this and some of the ways that it's designed is there are significant ways of where inmates can hurt themselves. They can hang themselves with the bar fronts and things, which was quite honestly dated when you actually built your facility. The bar fronts is just not the way jails have been designed literally for the last 40 years. But you have that, which presents a lot of liability for the sheriff, his staff, and obviously then for the county and all the citizens of the county. How your facility is laid out, obviously multiple levels, but at the same time, it's more of a linear style design. Today, we design, in Indiana at least, we design things much differently where you have a central control room. Think of it as like a pie. You have a central control room, which is the center of the pie, and then they can observe all the way around different pieces of the pie or different housing units where the inmates are. And you're able to observe a significant more amount of people with the same amount of staff that what you have. No good architect will ever tell you that you can reduce staff with a new facility. What I will tell you is that you can observe a lot more people with the same number of staff in a much more efficient facility. And that's where some of the thoughts process of what's the cost of a new facility. You also need to understand what the staffing cost would be as well. And that's something that once you get into design, council should be asking that question as much as just what the cost of a new facility is. So you start looking at your different levels of your inmates of your facility and how you've had to separate them and how you have to make it work with the bar fronts. It just becomes something that it's very hard to operate your facility. And there's really not good, sound decisions on how to improve that. Because one thing to go in to renovate your facility, you're going to need to move 350 inmates or a fraction of that to other facilities. And there's a cost of doing that. So it's not just like we've got an open jail. It's if we're going to do an extensive renovation to try and fix some of these items, you've also got costs of moving the inmates. When you move the inmates, what happens to the staff that's working there if they're not observing the inmates? And it's a big consideration whenever you look at renovating and extending lives of facilities. I would say that your outdoor rec is huge compared to a lot of facilities. There are a little bit of water infiltrations in some issues. Again, take in mind that your central control originally was designed also to accommodate the 911 dispatch. It's just worn. It just needs to be upgraded from that perspective. It just takes money and takes time to fix those items. The segregation units, much better using that term than isolation. That's an old term. But some of the things about that is that when you put someone in segregation, it's not the whole. It's not what we see on TV. Is that, they still do have rights. And when you put someone in that condition, they are going to fail miserably quickly. They're going to, what we would say is deteriorate. And you need to make sure that they've got some access to some natural light, some easier access to showers, because you don't want to move those folks once they get into those areas. It takes time, it takes staff, and you lose some efficiency from that point of view. Video court, one thing that you've been doing it, but that's one thing about COVID that's been great in jails is video court has become a very prominent thing, which that helps with reducing the movement of inmates across the street to your courts and things. So that's something that's been a big plus from that. The sheriff talked about the elevator or elevators in the facility. Just need to be upgraded significantly to make sure that they are the right speed, the right size, have good finishes, and have all the components that are necessary for a jail that operates over 5 levels. Just some general maintenance throughout the facility. Again, it just takes time to replace some of the finishes, to go through and replace the knob type door in lieu of put in the levers just to be more ADA compliant. I understand it's grandfathered, but what I see in other projects is it's a hard fix when we've had since 1991 to make some of these things ADA compliant. going through, you've just got a lot of water stains, whether it's from pipes, whether it's from roofs. You got a lot of materials that are just stained, just needs to be replaced, upgraded from those lines. Looking at some of the building systems, there's not a fire pump in your building. Not sure that that's an issue, but that's just one of the things, is making sure that you got the right pressure at all. You know, where you do have sprinkler heads, you do have very old institutional style sprinkler heads. Sprinkler heads don't last forever. I will tell you that our DLZ office in Indianapolis, we moved into an historic building, and we didn't replace the sprinkler heads, and we had one go off right outside my office. And it just, because they get old, they get brittle, and they fail. And it's just something that with your sprinkler heads, it's just, they can fail at any point in time once they get older. It is one of those maintenance items that you need to replace over the course of time from that perspective. You have made some improvements in water softeners and water heaters and things in the last 10, 15 years, but those things don't last forever, and it's going to need to be another time to start replacing those again. The existing conditions from the plumbing stuff, overall, you know, a lot of the China stuff, it's going to last forever. Okay, it's just the cleanliness of it. It's more of the valves and things that need to be replaced. You know, keeping trench drains clean over the course of time, you just get a lot of stuff into those, and it just kind of slows some things down as you go through the use of an overall facility. Like most facilities, in kitchens, laundry space, underground piping fails. It's because of a lot of the chemicals that are used in cleaning the spaces. You just go through and the old cast iron pipes just fail. And once they start failing, you replace parts, and then the next part fails because water is just flowing, and it's just an ongoing issue over and over. Couple things that you see in new jails today that makes a big difference as you're operating and maintaining the facilities is what we call pinned cleanouts, and where we have cleanouts that have like a trouble or like a fishing lure, a hook that actually can stop things if they try to flush, the inmates try to flush anything, and it prevents things from getting underneath floor slabs, calling in road rooter, tearing up floors, doing some things. That's something that is, if you went through a renovation or a new facility, is an absolute must, as well as with the water management system where you can control water on, off, into different areas of the facility. Some air handling units on the building, some of them are pretty old. And I think that, you may be going through a project or thinking about going through a project. You did replace some boilers 10, 12 years ago from that perspective, which is good from that overall, but things just don't last and you need to replace those. A lot of hot water pumps throughout the facility do need to be replaced. They are old in the overall facility, the same way with the heat exchanger. You do have glycol in your system, appears to be in good condition. It's just a few years old, so that's good. You maintain those areas of it. Just a bunch more slides here on some of the HVAC things that you've updated, but there's more things that you need to finish with updating the overall system. That doesn't go into replacing ductwork throughout the building and cleaning the ductwork and removing different aspects from that. That's something that does need to be also looked at. You got some smoke exhaust systems, some things that we call throughout housing units throughout the facility. They need to be updated because those things are very critically important in an overall facility. So if you have a fire and you've got inmates in your facility, they don't just get to walk out the door. It's all controlled, monitored doors, and these smoke exhaust systems remove the air very, very quickly throughout your facility. And they need to be tested, and they need to be working in tip-top shape as you go throughout the overall facility to make sure that everyone's safe and secure in that facility. Looking at your electrical, you've got a lot of switch gear that dates back 40 years in your facility that it's time to start replacing the items. There's a lot of the head-in equipment from an electrical point of view that needs to be upgraded just because of the age of the facility. And to do a lot of that, there is shutdowns of the facility to be able to do that. So what do you do with the inmates while you're renovating that part of the facility? Same thing with the generator. It's not old, it's just a few years old, which is great. We do understand that it is maintained, so, I think it's important to note that when things have been replaced, is that they are being maintained as we move forward from that. We talked about the main switch gear, but we've also got the distribution panels. We've got some of the transformers, the step-down units for those that are original to the building and really need to be replaced at this point in time. Obviously, you've got a mix of your LED lighting, the different types of the flat panels and the tube types. That's just a consistency throughout the facility. We believe that the fire alarm annunciator panel is original to the facility, does need to be upgraded. Elevators, we've talked about the some of the paging system, the intercom stuff does not work throughout the building, and that can become more of a safety issue and just being able to communicate from that. Just some miscellaneous little issues with just making sure all exit signs are the same colors and things. It's a code requirement, making sure you got all your ground fault receptacles throughout the facility. One of the things is that as you work in a jail facility, it's very different today. There's a lot of things where they have, whether it's a phone that they have some apps on, or whether it's different items that they do need to have Wi-Fi. It's not for personal use, it's for operation of the overall facility that needs to be looked at from a different point of view. So I'm going to step over real quick and walk through your juvenile facility and just talk about some things there, because I think that that's also something that just to bring in some kind of a big picture of what that is. It's 23 years old. It was closed back in the spring of 2021, and it was just pretty much closed, and you left the facility. I believe there's 46 rated beds over there, but one of the things about it is there are different standards for juveniles versus adults. There's also some items that if you wanted to use the facility on a short-term basis, I can't make any promises, can't speak for the Indiana Department of Correction, but to help with some of your overflow, they may allow you to use it on a temporary basis. But I will note that there are some didn't design it, and I'm not casting any stones, but there's some design issues of the facility. The cells aren't big enough. Okay, they're not wide enough per Indiana building code to be an occupied space. And there's square footages of the amount of inmates that you put into those facilities, into those cells. And if we look at what the requirements are for the Indiana jail standards, is that you put people in there and you double bunk them like you want to, they're not meeting the jail standards. There's not enough square footage. And that's something that from Kevin Orm, Director of Construction Services, to your jail inspector would have to look at that to see if they would, on a temporary basis, approve that. It's not a permanent solution. And to go in and to make the cells larger is just not practical. Okay, I mean, you'd have to remove walls, and that's just not practical in that type of facility, especially when there's only 46 beds to begin with, from that perspective. So just looking at some of the things, I think the exterior of the building, there's a lot of needs. It's an EFS type building. It's just, it's reached its life expectancy for that. You get a lot of cracks, you got a lot of deterioration of the exterior of the building. This building was built when ADA was in place, and there's a lot of things in this building that are not ADA compliant. So just to note a couple things on those lines. Just the building not being used, just some things have deteriorated. If you're not in a space, whether it's your house that, somebody used to live in, no one's lived in it for 2 or 3 years, it starts to deteriorate in some areas that just needs to be upgraded. So the building across the street, although it's 15 or so 10 years newer, has as many or more needs than what this facility has from this perspective. We talked about the exterior and some of the things that need to be done. It's just the EFS, that's the exterior insulation finish system that you see on it. It's just failing. And it's just the age of it from that point of view. And it just needs to be replaced, to be honest. You can start to see just some of the images, sealants throughout the exterior. need to be replaced. Water gets into that system and then it starts to fail, just like water in asphalt in your streets. Water gets down and cracks, then we get potholes or chuck holes, whatever you want to call them. Interior conditions, you walk through some of the spaces, it looks pretty good. But then there's just some other spaces in the building that just need to be upgraded if you're going to look at it. Just some of the toilet rooms, they're dated, but it's in fair condition. It's just very dated finishes throughout the spaces and some broken plastic laminate for its sinks and things. Toilet accessories aren't quite all there, but it's things that you can fix relatively easily from that point of view. We did talk a little bit about the ADA. You got several areas in the building that just are not ADA compliant, even though this was designed and built 8-9 years after that went into play. Just wear and tear on some of the materials throughout the building. A lot of it has to do with water, as much as anything. Padded cell in the building, it's failed, would need to be replaced. It's peeling. Once they start to peel, then they can just rip the stuff off the walls, but just some things that need to be upgraded from that perspective. Your outdoor rec's got a lot of water, a lot of standing water. It's got some drainage issues, a lot of water infiltration through the block walls and things that need to be upgraded to meet what your needs are of that facility. Again, a lot of water leaks from pipes, roofs, etc. You get a lot of dirty tiles, and you get water in humid environments, and everybody knows what happens from that point of view. It's a good layout. It's just small, and some of the spaces are just not to what they should be from that perspective. So we didn't review really the administrative part over there. We were asked to look at more of the detention side. So that's where you're going to hear me just talking about those items. And that's from the overall point of view, from a bigger perspective. There are some things that from a mechanical point of view is that they appear to be okay. But I think that, once you go back over and you turn everything on full go, you will likely start to see some failures just because things have not been used in the last 2.5, 3 years from that perspective. If we go through and look at the things, it's all original. It's all 23 years old, plus or minus. And this is when things start needing to be replaced. So I think you can, if DOC would approve it, you probably can use the space, but just realize that if you move into that, there's a significant amount of work that really needs to be done, even if they approve it, needs to be done such that you can use it for a period of time. Kitchen equipment is pretty much it's original to the overall facility. Like I said, it's not being used, so some things just they don't quite work as well as whenever you started to close the facility. The chiller is original. It's in pretty poor condition when we looked at it. Same thing with the boilers, the pumps, and the rooftop units as well. From this is still mechanical stuff. Just it's 23 years old, and a lot of stuff just needs to be replaced from that. As far as from the electrical perspective, we saw that some of the ATS, which is the automatic transfer switch, is obsolete. There's things that are not working with it. You can't buy the parts for it. It really needs to be upgraded. Probably a lot of work that also needs to be done on the generator. It's 24 years old, and just making sure that it's going to be able to take the load that's on the facility if you do actually use that for some period of time. Same thing, the distribution panel is not in as bad a shape as this building, but they have reached their life expectancy, and you should consider, if you're going to use it, to upgrade those. You've got an awful lot of mixture of the types of lighting in the facility, from your T8s to your T12s, but it is all fluorescent, so there's a cost and an inefficiency cost of using those versus if you go to the LED lights that we use today. Some of the security electronics do need to be upgraded. We know that some of it has been upgraded and replaced, but not all of it. And we believe that in just talking with Stanley, Mickey and Dusty and folks, is that there was some work that also still needs to be done in that facility. So that is really a snapshot. What I would say is that, you have in a good manner, you have prolonged the lives of your facilities to where they are today. And I would love to be able to stand here and tell you that, yes, you can go do a big addition to your facility. You can improve the efficiencies of your facility. You can provide all the spaces that you need. But just the reality of it is that when you start looking at the staffing needs of your facility, you look at the needs of your facility from a program space, i.e. spaces of the building, and to be able to make that to happen, to move the inmates, it gets to the point where doing a renovation, doing major expansions to your facility to meet your bed needs gets to be basically the same cost as a new jail. And it's just things that we look at. That's why only newer jails do additions, and the older jails across Indiana, other states, they decide after facilities get in your condition, you've gotten good use out of them, you've been able to prolong the lives of them, but there's a point in time when you've done everything that you can. And it's just how long can you continue before you do have to make some type of a decision. Just sharing my information. If anybody has any questions, we can ask them later, we can ask them now. It's just whatever you want to do.
Is there any questions from the members?
I think it's fair to ask some questions. One question that I've been wrestling with and just wondering, we started this jail certification study in order to see what our problems were. And my question is more with the study itself. How long does that study retain its status? 6 months, a year, until another certified study is required if we don't act on this study.
So I will use Huntington County because Commissioner Tom Wall asked me the same question. And what we did was for him on his facility and the other the other commissioners in Stoffel when he was sheriff county commissioner, and we did the same thing. And what we did was with them, they wanted to do an expansion to their facility, which they did. And over time, they went to go in and start, and what they did was they built a big enough jail that they technically could move their inmates and then go in and start renovating parts of their existing facility. So it was a question that the council asked us in Huntington County is how long is this jail study going to last? And so what we told them is, well, part of it depends on how much work you do to, from the study. Are you going to do nothing? If you do nothing, then the study doesn't change. It just gets in a more dire condition from that. But I would think that every 3 to 5 years, you need to update your study. And I think that is something that is important to you as commissioners, council, sheriff, the county as a whole. But also I believe not just because of the condition of your facility, not because of the amount of inmates to your facility. I think one of the things that's the most critical is if you get into a facility that is working, the sheriff, maintenance are always going to be coming to the council saying, we need X amount of money to fix something. And what a study can do is it can highlight what those items are, such that, in Huntington, I remember we said, hey, council, in 3 to 5 years, they're going to need about $500,000 to do a roofing project. They didn't know that. But if the sheriff or maintenance folks would have went to the council and said, hey, we need $500,000 to do a roofing project, they would have went, what? And it helps you to plan for the future. So once you get your buildings in conditions that they should be in, then the studies actually can help you plan future expenditures. And that's why I said that 3 to 5 year mark is something that's good, because those things can outline 5 years of work, and then you can start appropriating monies and there's not surprises.
I have a very pointed question for you, and I apologize if this is embarrassing. DLZ was one of the 3 groups that submitted RFPs.
Yes.
For bids, and we could have used other companies. And I know that you can't speak for those other companies, but with the data that you've collected, would any other company, you think, draw any other conclusions of what you've presented to us?
I think there might be some slight differences, but I think at the end of the day, that the other all three are good firms. And I think that they may come up slightly different things. It's just, I think that's the nature of the game. But I think at the end of the day, the recommendation is of work that needs to be done, the size of the facility, I think it would be very, very similar. Because we all do studies and we all design different things. Somebody may do the study, somebody else may design it, and they're usually right in line.
Is there any other questions from the members?
I have one.
Yes, sir.
So my short time as a commissioner, I've heard different people discuss or say something to the effect, I'm hoping maybe you can shed some light on it for me, that at some point, the state of Indiana can and will step in and say, basically, you are building a new jail, but we're going to build it for you. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
So
That a little bit more.
it's not just your jail. I mean, it can be any type of a county-owned facility. Indiana used to have an attorney, a private attorney that was well-known to work with inmates and file lawsuits against county jails. Thankfully, and I will say this, he retired, okay? But he went across the state, and you have situations, just as a lot of jails in Indiana, that need to be different, needs to be safer, needs to be more secure. You need to have more program space. You need to have more visitation space. You need to have more natural light. You need to have better HVAC. There's a lot of different things that inmates in the facility, it's called conditions of confinement, and they can address that. So you start off typically with Don Falk or Ken Falk from Indiana Civil Liberties Union. He will say first things, have you guys done a study? Have you guys started to identify some things? It's a good start. Now let's see how you're going to be improving your facility. And what they're doing is that they are looking at inmates have rights, and they need to have certain situations that you need to be able to provide those for them. And it is all dealing with the conditions of confinement. You could get a phone call tomorrow, just like a lot of other county jails. Your first step is you've done a feasibility. So that is a great first step. I applaud all of you for spending the money that you did to doing that, because you've started addressing it. You can get other folks. I was involved. We did not design the facility. I know some people have toured it. I will be up front. It's Vigo County. Another firm designed it. They faced a federal lawsuit. And we were hired to do a study on the facility. We were hired to design the new facility. It's 504 beds. And during planning and design, did not design the original one, but during the planning and design, we had to appear, the three commissioners, the county attorney, myself, we had to go buy a courthouse downtown Indianapolis on Ohio Street. We had to go stand in front of the federal judge on a monthly basis. And she would say, what are you doing? What's your next step? What are you moving forward? Have you selected a site? How big of a facility? How are you doing your visitation? How are you addressing all these things? And, they struggled a little bit finding the site. And the judge reminded them that you have a federal lawsuit. Do you need my help to help you figure it out? Because if I help you out, I'm going to tell you where to put it. Said it in court. I'm not paraphrasing. I will help you. And I will help you, or I will tell you how many beds you're going to build. So they worked very closely. But again, the first thing they did is they did a study. They started developing. They had a lot of public input like you guys have here tonight. So those can quite honestly just be one day away. One inmate can make a decision that I want to do something. So.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
all I've heard is everything you've showed us was about maintenance. Okay, everything you showed, well, you can fix this, you can fix that, you can fix this. I'm not against building a new jail, but not now. You said in the last meeting we had, if we build this new jail for 2045.
Sure.
In 2045, we're going to need another one, because it'll be 20 years old. Yes? You did.
I said you may need more beds. I didn't say a new jail.
Okay.
There's a difference there.
And the difference is, no matter what we do, if we okay this jail today and say we're going to build it, how's that alleviating the problems we have for now until the next 5 years or however long it takes you to build this thing? We have serious problems over there. The commissioners know this. The council has offered that D-home. None of you guys have tried to alleviate the problem. Sheriff, none of you. Your whole problem is all we can do is build a new jail. Well, I disagree, especially with your presentation of saying maintenance, maintenance, maintenance. We need more maintenance guys because no matter what, we're gonna have to maintain what we have, even if we okay this jail for the next 4 or 5 years. So we need to start maintaining today. This jail is not the answer to your problem. Your problem, Sheriff, you said it, justice, the criminal justice department ain't moving them fast enough. You said maintenance, right? You guys, the commissioners lowered their maintenance in the buildings this year. The sheriff lowered his maintenance. We need maintenance according to what you just said.
You need to replace some old systems that are outdated.
Yes, you did. Well, okay, the sheriff's department still lowered the maintenance in this budget, and so did the commissioners.
I'm just reporting the facts of what I see here, sir. So my bigger thing is maintenance is one thing. Systems need to be replaced regardless if you add on to the facility.
Sir, I understand. I'm a businessman.
I understand.
We spent $6 million 5 years ago, 6 or 7 million, by some of the companies you guys use. And you guys told us this jail was good for 15 to 20 years. Now in 5 or 6 years, you're telling us, guys, this is all I've heard. I've only been on council for 3 years, but I know one thing I did. I did my job. I showed them how to save money. Okay. This is not saving money, people. This is costing the taxpayers more money. You better look around, because even your 65,000 in the county, I very seriously doubt we have 65,000 in Grant County. We lose population every day. Every day.
That was reported by Department of Correction, not me. So I'm just sharing facts.
And the commissioners are the one that's dropped the ball. Not you, Ron, you're new. Not you, because you weren't here, Mr. Wright. But you dropped the ball because you should have been doing this maintenance all along. All along. And you can show me about all them stools. I'm the guy that fixed them stools because it was going to cost us $500,000 to replace them all. And when I called the manufacturer, guess what? Exact same stools. Showed me how to fix them. Saved you all kind of money. It's all about getting bang for your buck. And Mark, you really don't do a very good a job getting bang for our buck as taxpayers. And I'm a big taxpayer.
Well, I appreciate your being able to say what you want to say, and we're not in a campaign battle right now.
We're not, this ain't about campaigning. This is
We're
about the
talking-
citizens of
we are
Grant
talking-
County, and you're trying to push a jail on us that we can fix this jail. You spent $6 million 5 years ago, and you said this jail was good for 15 to 20 years. Come on, guys. Use your common sense. No different than that.
My turn.
Wait a minute. No different than that 911 call center over there that you got. The original bid was 1.7 million, and you come back and they got 2.3 million in extras? Come on, guys.
Okay, let
You
them talk
done?
now.
When we are talking about maintenance and when we are talking about the jail and everything that we continue to try and work with, we've come to you multiple times as a commissioners to the council saying, we need this. We've been slowed down multiple times in this room. You got to remember, we put in brand new roof on the jail. 20 years. Yep. It's got last 20 years. It's got a 20-year guarantee. We put a brand new skin around it, colored and sealed windows and stuff like that. We put in a new generator. All of those hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars in each of those projects bought us a little bit more time, but we have never been able to do what we've done, do a study and say, we actually know what's wrong and how we can make this better. We either maintain and take care of this, which was going to cost us millions of dollars, or we also use the same money and go new. We haven't come down and said, this is it. We haven't voted on that yet.
So you're telling me that it's gonna cost $110 million to redo that jail? If we maintain that jail, you're telling me it's gonna cost us $110 million to get that up?
When you think about all the costs that are involved in a renovation, relocation of our inmates, we're talking up to, with what we've got, $4 million a year just on relocation of inmates, so we can work on that current jail. We still are going to deal with the fact that it is only going to hold 270.
And I understand that, Mark, and I'm not disagreeing, we need a new jail, but we need to plan for it. Not just,
And that's,
boom, here it is.
that's what we're here for.
No, you're not. You've been pushing this agenda. Why have you lowered your maintenance? Why have you guys not started doing maintenance? If these guys showed us months ago, why hasn't somebody been doing something? Come on.
Thank you. Is there any other questions or comments? Yes,
Yeah,
Mr.
I'd
Wright?
just like to make a couple comments. I have only been on here since June. The three commissioners have went through the jail we've seen. I wish general population could have seen what we saw. It's deplorable. Our jail's deplorable. Water leaking from the ceilings. You don't know if it's tap water, sewer water. That's what not only our inmates are in, but also our employees. And, you know, hats off to Sheriff and his crew to actually fully staff the jail staff back up. They've done an awesome job on that. But, you know, I think with the age of the building, and I don't think any other sheriff or maybe commissioners, again, I really haven't been around county government all that much, has really tackled this jail situation that we've got. And I truly believe that if we just keep on kicking the can down the road and we keep on spending money and maintenance, and maybe that's what you want, Mr. Fulton, as far as more work. That is not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for trying to fix a problem that I feel is absolutely unacceptable for not only inmates, but also our citizens. We talk about wanting to clean up our community. Look at our jail. I mean, how good are we leading? I just think it's deplorable, what we've got going on. And I don't look at it as a fault. I think the can's been kicked down the road so many times that we're in the position we are right now. And I would think, and again, we've only been doing this for a little over a year, that somebody would have a little vision to say, we're going to build a new jail soon. And how are we going to fund that? And I don't know how we're going to fund that. I think that's what this study is going to start telling us. I think we need to take a look at those aspects and see. It may be where we keep going with the same jail. It very well could be.
I'm not saying that,
If we
Mr.
can't,
Wright.
if we can't afford it, then, you know, what do we do? And I'm not for one to have the feds come in and tell us how to run the business. Really, I'm not.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying I'm not against building a new jail. I'm saying, guys, no matter what you do, you're gonna have to start spending money to maintain until you figure out if you're gonna build this jail. So why is there not, this study has been how many months? Why has none of this been addressed? This stuff, a lot of this stuff in here is petty maintenance, painting. I mean, come on.
Security is not. Security is not. And we've got a serious security problem. And as Mr. Garcia or Sheriff Garcia said, one of his jailers got attacked. I mean, I was talking to one of them and they say that they have 3 or 4 guys that they're bringing back from the jail and shackled on the outside. While they're shackled, that's an okay thing, but he's got to walk in that same door that took him 30 seconds to open. And if you guys haven't been in the jail, which I don't think some of you have, I know Mr. Poling has, but if you haven't been in there, go in there and take a look and have them show you doors that won't work right. And if you were a jailer and you had 3 inmates behind you in shackles, okay. When they take them in, they got to take the shackles off inside the cells. I don't know about you, that makes me very uncomfortable. I mean, it's a serious safety issue for our employees. And so these doors don't work right. They're rusted out. I mean, this is an old building. And if we would have pulled the trigger on this 4 or 5 years ago, maybe we wouldn't be in the condition we are right now because bond market was low. We had less expensive goods, material costs. And I believe we talked about material costs of going up 7% a year, if I remember correctly in our meeting. And I overheard one of the council members say that it was 7% a month. And it's not 7% a month, it's 7% a year, if I'm correct. I believe that's what the number was. So I think we got to be honest with the people and just tell them where we're at. And like I say, I wish you could have saw what I saw, and maybe we could share some of those pictures and things where people understand what we're up against. And when it comes to the $2,000 a month for every individual, I see where you're getting that from, taking a look, not a month, I'm sorry, $2,000 for a tax base to make the 110 million or whatever. I see where you're coming from, but again, it's over a what, 25, 30-year period. And again, if we do the right things, and I'm totally agreeing. I come out of the GM world. I mean, it was preventative and predictive maintenance. I'm all about that. I understand. You don't want a catastrophic failure. Well, guess what? We got a catastrophic failure right now. And our jail is falling apart. That's where I'm at.
President,
Yes, go ahead.
just wanted to address a couple of issues Mr. Poling mentioned. You know, I don't like to look at the past because I don't believe that the answer necessarily is in the past. I think as a leadership, we should always look forward. We should always look to fix a problem. And as I stated in my earlier statement, all of us as elected officials need to take ownership of the problem that we're facing. And the only way that we're going to fix this issue is if we take ownership. If we start pointing fingers and blaming other people, the problem is not going to be fixed. I'm about fixing the problem, about finding solutions to problems. As a sheriff office, since the beginning of January of my term, we were down 19 detention deputies or jailers, as they were called in the past. Today, we're only down 4. We've been able to hire the vast majority of staff, and we're almost at 100% capacity for staff. We did that by looking forward, not by looking back. In order to fix this problem, we're going to have to do the same thing. As a sheriff, I'm not responsible for the maintenance of the buildings. As you well know, it's the commissioners, so I'm not sure where you got that information of me cutting back the maintenance funds. But we have done a lot to try to reduce a lot of our population in the jail. We partnered with the Gas City judge, with the Marion judge, and we came up with a plan to let nonviolent offenders get OR'd from jail without having to call them and making arrangements with the judges. So that helped us expedite that process. So where we're now, if someone comes in for a minor offense, we no longer have to get permission from the judge. They've given us pre-approved permission to allow those nonviolent offenders out. So that has helped us out somewhat. However, that's not the answer to the problem, the total answer to the problem. Another thing that we've done in the sheriff's office is we've been able to partner with the courts to get right now one offender to go under home detention while he's awaiting trial. And that's a program we're looking at possibly expanding to try to alleviate some of the issues that we are having with overcrowding. But that in itself is not going to be the final solution to the problem. So we're doing all that we can as a sheriff's office to get those numbers down. Mr. Poling didn't mention the issue with adjudication in the courts. We've worked with the prosecutor's office. In fact, we just sent them a list the other day of the inmates that have been in for 2 or 3 years that we're trying to get through the court system a lot quicker. If we want to solve the problem, we have got to work together, not against each other. If we want to make Grant County a better and safer place for the citizens that we have vowed to serve as elected officials, we need to find a way to get together, come up with the solution, whatever it may be. If it's a new jail, that's the solution. If it's not a new jail and you have a different plan, we want to hear it. Let's just not point fingers at everybody else, take ownership of the problem, find a solution, and move forward because the citizens of Grant County deserve that. And the sheriff's office vows to do everything that we can to get those numbers down as much as possible, because it does affect our teammates on our team. It does make it a more dangerous place for our guys and gals to work. And it's my job, and I promised every employee and their spouses and their family that it is my job to make sure that they go home every night and that they are protected. And I will do that, and I will work as hard as I can to make sure that happens. So as we work, let's work together, let's figure out the solution, and let's fix this problem.
Thanks, sir. Any other questions or comments from the members? Eric, do you have anything else to add?
No, I do not.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next presentation this evening will be by Dale on constructability with Envoy. Mr. Davis.
Thank you. Again, Dale Davis with Envoy. I am the planning director with Envoy. We have been hired as the owner's technical rep to represent the county and help provide and make sure we're getting the best information we can to move forward. Now, earlier in the night, people have been talking about the budget number that was shared at the last meeting. That's not the budget. That is a conceptual number that could generate a facility with the number of beds we need. The reality is, if that's not the amount of funding that's available in the community, that's not our budget. We need to take the next step beyond this study, and that's really truly understanding what the bearing capacity is here, because if the bearing capacity is, I'll pick a number, 70 million, well, that becomes the budget. There's a large number of ways to bring a project of this size into a different budget, into a different scope. You look at dormitory housing, you look at how many inmates per cell, any number of design parameters. There's a lot of ways to really focus our scope. So again, tonight's not really to approve, it's definitely not to approve a budget. It's to prove the need and to take that next step so we can engage financial professionals to help us understand and help the council understand as the financial body what those implications are, what those availabilities are, and to move forward with a new plan. I do want to talk a little bit about the current facility. Again, as a construction firm, Envoy's taken a look at what Eric's group has presented. We also walked with Eric's group during the facility tours, and unfortunately, the facility is functionally obsolete. And it turns out it's really difficult to renovate a facility that's meant to not be tampered with and is full and is beyond capacity on inmates. We have nowhere to shift those bodies to even work on the building incrementally. Also, some of the items Eric was pointing out, I mean, like the cell locks, I know previously had looked at other facilities to try and get some parts from them. Well, as Eric also mentioned, a lot of those facilities are going by the wayside, so fewer parts are available for us to take. I also want to highlight the repairs that were done previously. I don't want everybody to feel that those repairs were done as a waste, because to your earlier point, these facilities must stay functional until the last inmate moves out. And that was a way to preserve and prolong the life of this facility. I think the biggest part to hit on this existing jail facility is just the operational cost. And that's something that will really come through with the next level of analysis, and that's the financial analysis. When you look at how much one staff person costs for 20 years, even if that person's making, say, $40,000, over 20 years with their benefits, they're well over $1 million per staff. So if we can increase our operational efficiency, that's going to be a huge savings that would buoy a different project. Now, we did look at the D home, we did look at the juvenile facility, what it would take to address everything that was found in Eric's study. And just to get it up and running for a 3-ish year term was $3 to $5 million. And there's a range in there because there's some things you could essentially take a chance on them working, like the HVAC. In our estimation, if you're going to reopen a facility, that equipment is past its life. It needs to be replaced before you move anybody in. Those units are very expensive. And then if you're, investing in a machine that's supposed to run you 15 years and you're only using it for 3, your money could be invested elsewhere. For a full fix, we took a look at that as well. That was upwards of $12 million. Now, and that only gives you 50 beds. We were significantly more expensive per bed than a new facility by an order of at least 25%, if not 50% per bed. And the big point there is the sheriff's going to have to hire a lot more staff to reopen that facility because he can't take anyone from the existing facility and move them over there. He's just going to need new bodies. So then that staff cost starts to add up again. So that would only give you really, if you're doing a temporary fix, it would only give you about 12 to 16 months of relief. Because if you were to do that in tandem with building a new facility, you'd probably only be able to buy another year or so, because that's about how much less time it would take to renovate that facility. It's going to take roughly the same amount of time to produce drawings to get everything done. The construction time would just be shorter. So essential points, you really need to look at that staff cost. That's going to be a huge driving factor. And we can't do nothing. Something has to happen with the facility. And the most economical use of your money is unfortunately not in the existing facility. The cells, just taking those out, I mean, it's very labor intensive and it's an operational jail. What are you going to do with the inmates while it's operational? We can't move them to another part of the jail. They'd have to be moved off site to as you mentioned, Mr. Barsley, to the tune of millions of dollars a year. And that's just, again, money that you don't recapture as a community. So anyway, I wanted to highlight those points. And I know there was a concern about budget overruns. If this project were offered as a BOT project, build, operate, transfer, once you sign a build, operate, transfer agreement, that's your price. If it runs over, that's the developer's problem. The only thing that would increase the price on a BOT project is if there was a directed change in scope. So there are mechanisms available to help control any concerns about budget overruns. So again, we really want to take that next step and understand what the bearing capacity is so we can find a design partner and work through it and figure out what we can build. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any questions for Mr. Davis?
So a detention facility is planned and designed. What is the anticipated life expectancy of that building
Our current facility?
if you were to design and build one?
Well, Eric, do you have a good answer?
I'll address that. So one of the reasons why we set a year 2045 plan is we try to project the amount of beds that Grant County will need at that point in time. And where I made a note that in the year 2045, you may need to add more beds, that may be true. And if we say that you need to build 560 beds, but in 20 years or 25 years, you may need to add another 300. Do you want to build 560 plus 300 beds today? And you only need a fraction of those beds. And costs go up significantly. So we try to look like what most counties do is 20 years out, where do we need to be? So that was one about why the number of beds. But the other thing component to that is those core services that I talked about, the size, the intake, booking area, this vehicle sally port, the laundry, the kitchen, really the admin, those are sized for a larger facility. You may go into a laundry room and have 2 washers and 2 dryers today, need to add 200 beds in the future. There's room for 1 extra washer, 1 extra dryer, such that you don't have to go build some laundry room in a different location and have laundry services, staff inefficiency in a different area. So those are a couple things with that. But when you build a building, is 25 years from now, you're going to have some mechanical things that you need to replace. You're going to need to upgrade some security electronics. You're going to need to upgrade some locks. Keep in mind, folks, that we say 20, 25 years, but that building's used 24 hours a day, 7 days a week by people that really don't want to be there. And there's a lot of wear and tear on the buildings. We believe, not just DLZ, our competitors, folks that really design jails, we believe the way we design them today are much better than you did in 1990. We provide significant space that you can get in and work on the mechanical and electrical systems. We don't have these little baseball home plate size little chases where you've got to get in and fix, where the toilets go. We provide wide chases such that you can get in and you can work on the things. And what we see is it's a much, much, much easier to maintain, much more efficient, much more cost effective. And then when you do need to replace things, you can do it far easier than what you are doing now. We all learn through the process. So 20, 25 years, you may need more beds. You may need to put some money into the building to upgrade some systems of the building. No different than your car, no different than your house or your business that you also live or work in.
What was Envoy's responsibility? Did Envoy build the detention center or did they just design it?
That was before my time at Envoy, so I would have to check. I believe we built it.
You did not design it though.
Correct.
That
We
was
did
what
not
it is.
design it. We do not have the capacity
That's
to
correct.
design.
Another firm that-
We, at that point in our history, we were strictly a construction firm, yes.
So I guess my concern is in 20, 25 years down the road, Eric, you said that we could potentially build onto the building.
Yep.
Well, what I'm hearing right now is the building that we had that was built 23 years ago, we can't add on to it. We have to build a new one because that one is in such disrepair that we can't add on to.
Well,
it.
and-
So what's going to be the difference between 20 years down the road with a new building that we built? It sounds like we're going to be in the exact same spot that we're in. We're going to have to build a brand new facility.
And that's a good question. I would hope that the architect you work with thinks a little bit further out than just design the current facility. They think about, hard to believe, we're building this today, but we also need to think about how we can expand it in the future. I mean, we think about that. You have to.
That would be a welcome change.
Yeah.
20 years, I've sat on this council, I cannot tell you how many times that we end up getting requests back from a project because, oh, we forgot this, or we didn't include this, or this didn't last as long as we needed.
So it's little things. I talked about the spaces of the building, but it's also little things. You may have a 6-inch water line that you need for the size of the building today. Now, let's put in an 8-inch water line now. It is pennies. Your labor costs are basically the same. It's upsizing a pipe a couple of inches, but you got capacity in the future to be able to expand onto it. You've got corridors that link to, that's where the expansion is going to be. It's planned. Let's not run utilities where you're going to build something in the future. It's just good design.
Right.
Just being honest.
Well, I would agree.
I can affirm that some of the jails that we've looked at, they have actually talked about this extra space. Hancock County Jail has a whole wing that is unfinished, but they have planned that they can add approximately another 200 beds inside of the current structure in order to accommodate what's in the future. And that just makes perfect sense. One question I do have for Dale, you talked about finding out what the county financially can, what
Yes.
burden they can How do we do that?
So we will need to bring on a certified municipal advisor, someone who is, it's a state requirement when we're talking purchasing decisions. I cannot tell you or advise how you should spend your money. That is for a municipal advisor who can come in, look at your tax burden, look at those unique situations to your community, and tell you what that bearing capacity is. And part of that is they will also need to bring on an operational analysis that will look at what your true operations costs are. So that can also be extrapolated out. And when you, so, because, the facility is only a part of the equation. We need to look at what the current tax levy is, what the current debt is, what the salaries are, and then package that all together with a construction cost and get a full picture of what we're looking at. So the next step is to bring those financial professionals on and also to bring on an attorney who specializes in this type of delivery and build, operate, transfer delivery, who can help us follow through and hit all the procedural guidelines we need and make sure everything's done correctly.
Any other questions or comments? Is that all you have?
That's all I have.
Are we gonna do number 7, the introduction of the legal financial team by Oscar? So,
Oscar Gutierrez with, is on.
Yep.
Oscar Gutierrez with Boundary Consulting, registered municipal advisor. We're here to advocate for the approval of a contract of Katz, Sapper and Miller and Coonrod and Associates in combination. The reason for that contract has been discussed today. Issues such as capital maintenance and maintaining the buildings. It's been discussed staffing levels. We've discussed transportation, medical. So these are what we consider operational costs. And that is something that we have worked with Ben Rayers is here at Knox County and provided an excellent report that allowed us to carve out how much money we would need to plan for the next 25 years, which we did a 25-year financing at Knox County, to ensure that the sheriff's office would have proper staffing that included inflation costs rising, that included where the population of the county was going. So I would, the reason I'm standing here and advocating for their contract is so that they can provide me with that cost. I will then take that cost and put it against the potential funding sources, which in your case are taxes. You have property taxes and you have income taxes. And there's different ways to get to a funding level to pay for what you can afford. I can tell you that a $110 million jail is probably likely unattainable for a county like Grant County. I haven't done the study and I could be proven wrong, but just thinking of the possibilities, it is a large number. So looking at where you are financially today with your tax rate, one of the, it is, before I move on to that point, I just want to stop and allow you guys to ask any questions in regard to the process on how individuals like Ben, who's here, KSM will put together that report. If you guys have specific questions of what his process is, how he'll work with the sheriff's office, auditor's office to kind of get the reporting, I'll turn it over to him. But I'll pause here to allow for that.
Questions?
Okay.
proceed on.
Okay, the second part of what I want to discuss today, and I may not have made enough copies, but I'm going to try to. Thanks.
You know what? On my chair. On my chair.
One of the funding sources that this body, both these bodies should consider is property taxes. And the second page of that presentation is a really simple graph. You know, as your assessed value goes up, your tax rate goes down. And in last year, the tax rate for the county went down, and you can see that on the third page. And there's a lot of taxpayers here, and I would like to ask anybody in the public if they sent any thank you cards to the council or the commissioners for the tax rate going down. Your tax rate went down. Yeah, because the value of your properties went up. That's the reason why likely your bills were higher, is because the value of the property increased like it did nationally. So it's a national phenomenon. However, the tax rate did drop, so slightly by a few cents. And this year, you have another opportunity where you grew by roughly, let me look this up again. I don't have it memorized. The assessed value grew by 9.85%. So you have an opportunity to maintain the rate, not the value. You can't control the assessors, how they do their job and how they assess the properties, but you can maintain the rate to stay flat. If that is something this body would like to consider, you have roughly an ability to levy about $1 million for a 1-year GO bond to kind of kick the can down the road next year for this reporting to go down. And that will give you $1 million to find a project. And again, I'm not here to prescribe what that $1 million will be spent for. I'm sure that there are projects around the county that could use that for 1 year. But next year, when you are ready to fund a jail project and you are maintaining your tax rate by not increasing it, that will allow you roughly $13 million worth of funding that can go towards either the jail or some other project. So the reason why I bring this forward in this discussion is because you're in the middle of a budget process. And if the collective body, both commissioners and the council, want to move forward with maintaining a flat tax rate, you have to do that before November 1st, which is the deadline. So that's why I stand here and bring that forward for your consideration, because if the tax rate drops next year and you decide to utilize property tax as a potential funding mechanism for taxpayers, they're going to see a larger increase. So, in the future. So it is just a consideration. It's not a recommendation, but because of timing, I wanted to bring that forward. On other funding sources, we will look at a jail income tax. We'll look at redistribution of other income taxes to maintain the level where you decrease one, increase one. There's public safety. So we will put together funding options and what that will mean. We'll show you, if you do increase property taxes, what it will mean to taxpayers if their home is worth $250,000, $400,000. We'll give you different ranges and what that will mean to their property by the actions that you take. So those are the types of reports that we'll give you, so that your actions show you what the consequences are for your constituents. But the point for my being up here is to advocate for, I wouldn't say my competitors because we work in tandem, but for Katzapper and Miller and Coonrad to be approved by this body to put together the operational report of a potential jail, so that we can take that number and subtract it from what you can afford to build. Because one point that was made is, if you don't plan for capital expenses, that's one good way to get into the situation again. So I'll stop here and allow for any questions. And I apologize for bringing up the property taxes just because of timing. I felt it was important enough to bring forward, and since I knew there would be a public and it affects them, I felt bullish enough to bring it up.
Is there any questions or comments?
I think we're good.
Do we need to hear from KSM?
the representative from KSM could not be here, but I have Coonrad and Associates here if you would like to hear from Ben. I would.
Anything they'd like to add? Or-
Nothing, well,
Okay.
Who is this?
Ben Rager with Coonrad and Associates. They are the subcontractor with KSM. They work in conjunction, so it's.
It's first time I've heard of KSM and wherever he's from. So.
Yep.
How do these entities fit into this, all this?
They are,
KSM.
they're accountants, and so is, they do the report for the operational costs
Okay.
of, so there would be only focus on what it's going to cost to run the jail, transportation, medical, staffing, capital expenditures, and inflation rates. So
And this is would be for the new jail, not the existing.
they will need, they can work with, at the direction of the commissioners and this body as well. But, they
It
can.
could be rehabilitation money, or it could be new money for construction.
If I heard the construction folks correctly, you're looking at additional beds, which will mean additional staff, and I think the numbers are, well, different, will cost the same in staffing to add.
Can I say one thing to that? I think it might help is if you decide to build a new facility, we'll just say the big if. One of the things that I feel that is important is that you do an analysis of your existing facility. To do it as a benchmark is how many folks, what are the costs to run your existing facility? And I want to give you a very clear example of that is just using general numbers, not numbers whatsoever for Grant County. But if, for example, you say you have, I know I'm way off, but say you have 30 people running a 274 bed facility, 30 people, and say you only have 25 currently working. It's important to note how many you really need. Because if you go to a 500 bed facility and you still only need 30 people to operate it, it doesn't mean that that new facility costs you 5 more people because you are not staffed accordingly, appropriately where you're at for today. So I think that it's in everyone's best interest is to understand where you should be today, what your costs are today, and then to compare that in the future if you do a renovation, you do an expansion, you do a new facility, so you can understand what those true differences are. Quite often we see facilities that are understaffed, and when they need to hire 5 new people, it's usually just to get to where they need to be. It's not because of a renovation, expansion, or a new building. That's why I think you do need to look at your existing, at least in my opinion.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time, gentlemen.
Next item on the agenda here is Connor Sullivan. Good evening.
good evening. My name's Connor Sullivan. I was before both bodies. It was a couple months ago when Envoy was presenting the BOT procurement method. And I believe we gave Rich Taylor gave quite an expansive overview of the BOT method and how it could be used as I guess a valuable resource to Grant County. With that being said, one of the points I just want to touch on that Dale mentioned too, the nice part about that the BOT procurement is once you have a design and have that guaranteed max price, that's it. There's no cost overruns. And that's a huge benefit to Grant County. And that's counties and cities and towns and school districts and libraries across the state of Indiana are making use of this procurement method more and more so now because of that guaranteed max price with the current market, with whether it's, materials or labor, whatever it is, that's a huge benefit. That being said, though, in order to get that benefit of that guaranteed max price, which is guaranteed by statute too, to keep in mind. So it's not just the contract between the developer and the county. You have to take certain steps that are very specific and it's if you trip up over one of them, you could lose that protection, the guaranteed max price. And so whether it's, getting the public hearing right or going through the whole procurement process, look at the RFQs and having that actual BOT agreement in place, whatever it is, that's where someone like myself would come in and be able to help Grant County with the BOT process. That being said, my normal, I'm a solo practitioner, but my normal job is I'm the Hamilton County attorney too, and I help with Hamilton and Tipton County. And actually, I'm working with Justin and Dale on your guys' boiler chiller project as well at the BOT. And so with that being said, I know we've talked about the BOT procurement method previously, and I'm sure you guys have heard quite a bit about it. But if there's any other questions or concerns about that, I'm happy to answer them. And I don't want to take up much more of your guys' time. I know it's already been a long evening, so.
Is there any questions or comments?
Just as Connor mentioned, we've done this boiler chiller project that services this building and the jail in order to see how the process works. And if we like it, any future construction or work can use this BOT method. And so he's helped us to take new steps in saving money.
Thank you,
Any other
Commissioner.
questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is the discussion of the tax neutral bond. Do you have anything you'd like to add to that, Mr. Bursley?
We had mentioned that, and again, I may have to lean on, is Oscar still in the room? He had mentioned that is a possibility that we could look at as well.
And I think I jumped the gun. I didn't realize that was an actual agenda item. So that was the information that I presented that's in the,
Yeah.
and on there. So roughly $1 million. It's on 1 year. So we borrow today and then it will be on the next year's distribution. And then next year, then it will open up the ability to kick it to 20 years.
Okay, thank you. I wrote a note to myself, ask Oscar what he's saying here, so you just cleared it up for me.
I just wanted to make sure I didn't leave anything out of your agenda here, sir.
Appreciate it.
So obviously, the next steps are up to the commissioners and the council working together. Is there anything you'd like to add?
No, on our old agenda that we had, we will review and discuss on letters of engagement and contracts again next week and get some information back to you. So I think we're good at this time.
I think since we do have some public, I'd like to entertain at least 10 minutes of public comment this evening, if that's.
Apropos.
I'll go ahead and open at this time for public comment. I'm gonna allow like 10 minutes total. I'm allowed 2 minutes for each speaker. If you want to come to the podium and state your name and your address for the record, I'll allow public comment this time.
This is not really a complaint session, but I do have some questions. There seem to be a lot of things that really weren't talked about, like what would be done with this building? This is the office building connected to the jail. What would be the plan for it? Would it have to be replaced if the jail is being replaced? Where would a new jail be? Would this facility be taken down and would it be built here? If this total facility is abandoned, how's that going to be for the rest of the city? If we pull out, go someplace else. And like Mr. Polling was saying, we've got to get through the next couple of years. So if a lot of these things are an imminent problem, we got to focus on that while we put together a plan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Again, this is a time for public comment. If you would, just come to the podium and just state your name and your address and we won't, we're not gonna, do question and answer. So just
Yeah,
give us
with
your
the Stevens
comments.
General problem of it.
Perfect.
My name is Lois Jones and I'm Vice President of the BZA, of Board of Zoning Appeals here in Grant County. You were talking about all this money that we're going to spend and everything, and the taxpayers of Grant County haven't been mentioned. And so I don't think anybody's in favor of having their taxes raised. The largest employer in Marion what we don't want to do is run them away. So just think about that part of it.
Thank you.
Todd Glancy from Fairmount. Hello. I just have one question, if you can put it, I don't know, what information is where, like these reports, and are they going to be accessible to the public, like in the library or something? That's my only comment, is to provide the public with all the information that you can. And we would all appreciate it, so we can dive into it, and then we can make suggestions. So.
Thank you, sir. I would assume, Mr. Bartley, your office could post some of that on the website.
We can do a website. I think we have hard copies in the commissioner's office. I'm not sure if the auditor's office keeps a copy or not of the report.
I do have a.
So we have those hard copies, or we can actually put them online.
Is there any other public comment this evening?
Maybe just a couple of questions. Jim McWhirter from Sweetser. We've talked about the jail population that exists now, how long they've been there and they're waiting trial. Someone said 90% of the population is awaiting trial. Guess I'm curious as to how does that compare to other counties' status at this point? And what's the average number of days that they've been there waiting for trial? Just kind of a curious situation there. That seems like a lot of people. Be good to get that cleared out. That could reduce your numbers from 350 down to something a lot less pretty quickly, I would think, if we could work that out. Do we need another court to accomplish that? You know, I don't know. Just a thought. And also there was some talk about a bond issue to kind of neutralize tax rate. I think in your current process for the 2024 budget, you're probably pretty far along to be able to accomplish that at this point. You didn't advertise for another debt. I did put in the debt service fund some additional cash balance that could be used for a payment that was not considered at this point imminent. But before the deal, Jeff would let you have that levy. You'd have to have some reason for it. So I'm not sure you can actually consider that at this point. So just some thought there.
Thank you, sir.
Good, thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the public? Is there any questions or comments from the members of the council? Commissioners? The council will be adjourned and the commissioners will be in recess. Correct?
We are in recess.